Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. And now, Tider Insider TV.
You know, we've seen Nick Saban throw a football around at practice thousands of times. He does it every day. Look at him getting that arm warmed up. Because on Friday night, we got to see the coach throw out the first pitch at Sewell Thomas Stadium. You know, he's an athlete. You can see it right there. Saban headed to the New Joe to open the Tide series against Houston. It was a busy day for Coach, who just wrapped up football practice, the first spring practice of the year, and we'll have more on that coming up in just a bit. But look at him. He's competitive, even throwing out the first pitch. And good evening, everybody, and welcome into another edition of Tider Insider TV, presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock. Tonight, again, enjoying Diet Pepsi Wild Cherry. Love the sound effect. Love that taste. Now, you see that I'm flying solo tonight. I'm Gary Harris, sports director at WVUA 23. Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. Well, he's living the good life. He's at the beach, enjoying the sunshine and the surf. Not that I'm bitter or anything, but he will join us later in the show to talk some football. But we're going to start with basketball, of course, because it's March Madness. The Crimson Tide is headed back to the NIT for the second straight season, coming off a disappointing 26-point loss to Kentucky in the SEC tournament quarterfinals last Friday. Bama looks to find its late season groove that at one point saw them win 5 games in a row, including 3 on the road. Avery Johnson's squad will be back on the road for the NIT opener tonight against Creighton in Omaha. Playing in the NIT is about more than just giving seniors Retno Basahan and Arthur Edwards a chance to continue their Alabama careers.
It's also a wonderful opportunity for our young guys that need more minutes in a postseason game, play against an opponent we hadn't played against all year, on the road, have a chance to improve in all the fundamentals of the game, and then we can continue to get more games on video to help us with our postseason evaluation whenever this season comes to an end. So, and as a staff, a lot of times we're always pointing at the players. People forget about us as a staff. You know, this is our first rodeo.
Well, it's not Creighton's first rodeo. The Blue Jays have played in the postseason 18 of the last 19 years. In fact, it was Creighton 5 years ago that knocked Alabama out of the first round of the NCAA tournament, Anthony Grant's only NCAA tournament appearance. Creighton comes in at 18-14 overall. Doesn't sound great, 99 in the Big East, which was a really good conference this year. The Blue Jays, though, have lost 5 of their last 6. And the Alabama women's team also has postseason play ahead. They're going to the women's NIT. Christy Curry's team will play at Tulane tomorrow night in New Orleans at 7 o'clock. The Crimson Tide is 15-15 entering the game, but they have not won a road game this season, a true road game. So they'll try to break through tomorrow night. Tulane Greenway comes in at 21-11. And the Alabama gymnastics team is also gearing up for its postseason. The Crimson Tide is looking for a 3rd consecutive SEC championship this coming Saturday in North Little Rock, Arkansas. Now, Bama is coming off its lowest team score of the season in its regular season finale at LSU. But before that, Alabama seemed to be competing at its most consistent high level of the season. Now head coach Dana Duckworth is hoping her athletes can rise to the occasion and meet the challenge in North Little Rock and put that LSU meet behind them.
That was a really out of character experience. And so, you know, we talked about what do we need to do? And, you know, when you have something like that, you use it to fuel you. You use it to make you better. And at the end of the day, you focus on the little details, the technical things that are going to make you successful. And you let go of the stuff that didn't work and you move on.
That really wasn't Alabama gymnastics. We know we can deliver much better gymnastics, and that we just have to really focus on that process that got us to where we were before LSU, and really to just fine-tune it to where we can be at our biggest and most high peak at SECs.
And I expect them to compete very well. Coming up next on Tider Insider Television, Rodney Orr, the beach bum, will join us from down on the sand and surf. We'll talk Bama football as the Tide had its first practice since winning a national championship last week. And coming up, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets as we always do. And Rodney will still be able to answer your questions, even though he's not here in person. So go ahead and give us a call at 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or email us at titv@wvoa23.com. And Brandon Cameraman is also checking Twitter. So if you want to tweet at us, use the hashtag TITV. We'll be back with more of the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider TV. We'll return right after this timeout. Well, the Alabama baseball team is looking to build a winning streak again after dropping 2 of 3 at home over the weekend to a very good top 25 Houston ball club. Alabama playing tonight over in Hattiesburg, Mississippi at Pete Taylor Park as they play the first of 6 road games in a row. They're at LSU this weekend to kick off conference play. Right now in the third, Alabama and the Golden Eagles tied 0-0 again in the third inning down in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. And welcome back to Tider Insider TV. Let's bring in Mr. Tider Insider himself. Rodney Orr is vacationing this week, living the good life, but he is able to take time out from the sand and the surf and the sun and the cold beverages and join us on the telephone. Sorry to put you out, Rod, but the other half, living in that luxury condo while I'm back here in the studio, it's the least I could ask you to do is join me on the telephone, right?
That is it. That's right. And the only cold beverages I've enjoyed, Gary, is cold water on the beach. Now, I'm telling you, the water out there is not only cold, the drinking water is not only cold, but I guarantee you the water out here at the beach is freezing cold.
Yeah, it's still kind of cold in that Gulf, I know, but at least it's been sunny and warm on the beach, so I know you're enjoying yourself. But you're still never far away from TiderInsider.com. You continue to work, and it's football season. It's spring football. It may be spring break this week, but they did get one practice in on Friday before that spring break, and you got to go out there and watch a little bit of the viewing period. What were your impressions of the first spring practice?
Well, I think, first of all, obviously they've lost some good players, but the clear thing is that they have a lot of really good players coming back and at a lot of positions. I think the offensive and defensive lines look pretty good. I'm talking about just in terms of the eye test. Physically they look really good. And, when you look at that defensive line, you don't see an Ashawn Robinson or Jaron Reed or DJ Petway there or even a Darren Lakewright, because you lost those 4 guys. But there's still some really outstanding players there. When you look at Deshaun Hand, he certainly passed the eye test. Deron Payne looked fantastic to me. I think Dalvin Tomlinson's gotten bigger. We know about Jonathan Allen. He's sitting out this spring a little bit with the shoulder surgery. So they really have some outstanding players there. I think, when you look at the speed at linebacker, Gary, Reuben Foster, Sean Dion Hamilton, Tim Williams, Ryan Anderson, Rashawn Evans, Christian Miller. They've got a lot of speed there. You look in the secondary, there's a lot of talent there on that side in that aspect of the defense as well. So, that side of the ball looks pretty good. I think that Jeremy Pruitt will do an outstanding job there. Offensively, they've got to replace Ryan Kelly at center, and we've talked about that, and at Dominic Jackson at right tackle. But I think they've got the parts there up front offensively, and everybody wants to talk about the quarterback, and that's a long way from settled.
It is, and I got a couple specific questions coming up for you. But first, following practice on Friday, as you know, Rodney, Coach Saban met with the media, and he talked about what he saw on day one and talked about, some new guys that have an opportunity to step up, as is the case every spring.
A lot of people to replace. It's what makes it fun when you lose 25% of your team every year. And it's new opportunity for a lot of people, new roles that other people have to, sort of take on the team. So one thing was pretty obvious. We have some good players, but we also have a long way to go to get where we want to be.
Well, Rodney, you've already mentioned a number of guys, especially on that D line, but let's talk about some other young guys, and let's go ahead and get back to the quarterbacks, because we know Cooper Bateman is the only quarterback with any experience, the only one to take a snap in a game. David Cornwell's a redshirt sophomore. Blake Barnett's a redshirt freshman. Jalen Hurts is a true freshman, but all 4 of these guys are going to have an opportunity to compete for this job. Now, I know there is a lot of chatter that Blake Barnett is the most talented. I don't know how you can tell that. All these guys were highly recruited, but talk about that position specifically, and how do you think this competition will play out?
Well, and it's always hard to tell right now, but I think when you look at, you have to start with Cooper Bateman. He was the backup last year. He got all that experience week to week in terms of gaining repetitions and getting repetitions in practice time and all of those things. for a full season. That's reps those other guys do not have. That's experience they don't have. He started the Ole Miss game. He got a taste of it. And that was a very difficult situation for him to be put into, but and he didn't play that badly given all the circumstances. But so I think when you look at Cooper Bateman, he's a guy that's got some experience. He's a heck of an athlete. He can really run, and he can throw the ball pretty well. He's improved his accuracy. Now, Blake Barnett's a guy that everybody wants to talk about because of, he was so highly touted, the Elite 11, winner out of California and all of those things, and he is an excellent player. I think the thing with Blake is he just needs to continue to get bigger and stronger, and Coach Saban, I think, alluded to the illness that he had towards the end of last season, kind of slowing him down a little bit. Cornwell's got all the tools. I mean, he's a big, tall kid. Got the good size, 6'5", about 230 or whatever, and he's got a strong arm. He's a decent athlete if he has to run it, and he's got all the tools. Jalen Hurts is a guy that's a fantastic high school player out of Channelview, Texas. Played for his dad, really grasped things quickly. As a coach's son, and I think he's got a bright future. Now, again, it's always difficult for a true freshman, but the advantage he has. One thing he has working in his favor is he has the opportunity to go through spring practice and really, kind of catch up somewhat in that regard and kind of get himself prepared as fall practice comes around in August.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch those quarterbacks mature and progress, not just through the spring, but into fall camp as well. Another big event last week that you attended was Pro Day on Wednesday. Rodney, I think it's neat. You follow these kids when they come out of high school. You see them come to Alabama as either high school players or junior college players and watch them progress and grow and get bigger. And then at Pro Day, you see the seniors and the draft-eligible juniors, and it's kind of the finished product. And I enjoy watching them just to say, man, I remember when that kid got here and look at him now. But it really is impressive to go to an Alabama Pro Day and watch those guys work. All 32 teams were represented. Bill Belichick was there. Chuck Pagano was there. I mean, that shows you how far this program has come under Nick Saban. Because when he first got here, Rodney, they didn't have many pro prospects, period.
Yeah, didn't have any drafted. Went the first year and didn't have any drafted. So, in 07, I think it was, and when they were shut out.
The 08 draft. 08
draft, right, exactly. The 07 fall. But, I mean, this is a hotbed. Alabama is where it's at in terms of, the NFL draft in the last several years, and they've had a run of great players. I think a lot of these guys showed what they could do in the combine that really didn't participate too much in the pro day. Kenyon Drake had a nice pro day, rather a nice combine with that 4.40 40. And, I think Henry just really didn't go that much in pro day after that performance he had at the combine, but he did, I think, show off some receiving skills that impressed pro scouts. But, I think when you look at a guy like DJ Petway, he's a guy that probably had a little bit better pro day than he did combine. He improved his time, got down to a 4.89, and so he probably helped himself. And some of these other guys got, opportunities to show what they could do. Geno Smith and, some others. So I thought all in all it was a, kind of a display of another group of outstanding players.
Real quickly, Rodney, because we do have to get to break, but a guy that really showed out, I thought, and helped himself was Dylan Lee, the senior linebacker. He tested really well, and watch him as a special teams guy. I think a lot of these guys are going to make rosters next season coming from Alabama. Well, coming up next, Rodney's not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. We're going to interact with you as we're going to take some phone calls here on the program, as it'll be time to dial in and get up with us at 205-348-9882. Phone calls, emails, tweets, a number of different ways you can get in touch with us. We'll be back with more Tider Insider TV right after this. And we're back here on Tider Insider Television. It is time to interact with you, our viewers. Rodney Orr is with us on the phone from Perdido Key, Florida. And speaking of the phone lines, there are phone lines open at 205-348-WVUA, 205-348-9882. Call in now, but let's go talk with our good buddy CB here in Tuscaloosa. Hadn't heard from you in a while.
Man, I've been kind of sick, but I'm making a comeback. Tell old Rodney to eat about 3.5 dozen them raw oysters for me. And,
Rod.
I'd take them like a capsule. But, I just love baseball. Really, when it gets down to it, that's my favorite sport. And, but, buddy, I tell you, I've been watching the hitting coaches, the base running coaches. I know they was great players, but that don't mean you can coach.
Right.
And, Brother Mitch, he's hanging with them, but, he ain't tried to change coaches. I think it's going to sink him, and please prove me wrong. They're wearing a red jersey. I am for them.
Oh, I hear you, CB, but I think you're right on. I mean,
It
the
looks
pitching.
bad, hitting 240-something.
Yeah,
Come on.
the pitching's strong. Rodney, I
Very
agree.
good.
I agree with CB here. It's going to come down to whether or not they can hit enough. That's been the case the last few years. When you get into SEC play, I don't care how good your pitching is. Those teams are going to score some runs. They lost to Houston 3-1 on Friday night. They lost 3-2 on Saturday, 2 well-pitched games. They did come back on Sunday now and score 8 runs to win, and they had to score every one of them to win the ball game. But as he said, team average in the 240s. I worry about that hitting, Rodney.
Well, we said that last week when we were talking about the team.
Every year.
Yeah, the key would be, this team, we were talking about the pitching and how strong it was, but at some point you have to get some support at the plate. And, we talked about that a little bit. Now, I may be wrong here, Gary, but I think if you look at most of the hitting statistics right now, batting averages and all of those things, all the offensive categories, Alabama's, lagging behind a little bit. They're not doing very well. And, but we'll see how it goes as the season kind of progresses.
We will, but that pitching has been stout. Sunday notwithstanding, they have just been outstanding as a staff this season. Right now down in Hattiesburg playing Southern Miss, no score in that one. Still pretty early in the ball game. All right, let's take an email. This one is in regards to basketball. From Chuck in Northport, what will be Nick King's impact next season for Alabama basketball? Well, Chuck, Nick King, the transfer from the University of Memphis, I think he'll have a huge impact, Rodney. I mean, you're talking about a guy that coming out of high school was a top 50 national recruit. He's 6'7", but he's one of these guys, Rod, that has that extremely long reach, long arms. His wingspan is that of a 7-footer. So he can shoot the ball. He's athletic. He's long. Yeah, he's going to help them a ton, don't you think?
Well, absolutely. I think, if you looked at them this year, and I'm not taking anything away from any of the players. I'm just saying when you compared, relatively speaking, to the teams that they played in the SEC, they did not quite stack up athletically to most of the teams that, you watched them play against. So I think anytime you had a player of that magnitude, a guy that was, highly recruited coming out of high school, one of the top players in the country, he has all the attributes that you mentioned, and I think certainly he's going to be a welcome addition.
It didn't work out for him at Memphis, but we see it all the time. Doesn't mean a guy's not talented. Sometimes a change of scenery, a new environment. He's got a lot more hoopla than Arthur Edwards had coming from New Mexico, where he didn't do much, and look at the season he had. So I'm excited, Chuck, about Nick King. I mean, I think he could be really, really good for Bama next year. Well, still to come on Tider Insider TV, a former Alabama football player gets a very prestigious NFL recognition award, and he has not ever played in a single game. Stay tuned for that. And more your phone calls, emails, and yeah, go ahead and tweet at us using that hashtag TITV, or you can just tweet at me, Gary Harris _WVUA if you would like. I got my Twitter account right up here. And phone lines are open at 205-348-WVUA, 205-348-9882. So call in now if you want to get involved in the program. We'll be back with more of the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV will return from Tuscaloosa and Perdido Key, Florida, where Rodney's at right after this. Well, this is a touching story. Former Alabama defensive tackle Jesse Williams was the Seattle Seahawks Ed Block Courage Award recipient this past weekend. However, the 6'3", 310-pound native of Australia is looking for a new team after the Seahawks released him. In his 3 seasons with Seattle, he never played in a regular season game. His first 2 seasons were cut short by knee injuries, and then last May, he was diagnosed with papillary type 2 cancer, a setback that forced him to have a kidney removed weeks later. But he now says he has a clean bill of health. Hopefully somebody else will sign Jesse Williams. He's a great, great young man. And let's go right back to our emails. We've got a phone call that we're going to get to as well. But first up, an email. And Rodney, this is a good question tonight on Lester Cotton. How much progress has Cotton made at offensive tackle? That's from Barry here in Tuscaloosa. And Rodney, he's made some progress, but he's also got the possibility of playing guard, right?
Yeah, I think Lester Cotton has a chance to be an outstanding player from right there at Central High School in Tuscaloosa. And, Gary, he's versatile. He has good size. He is a good athlete. And, he is one of those top-notch offensive line prospects that Coach Cristobal and Nick Saban's brought in over the last few years. I think when you look at him, he'll probably compete some at right tackle this spring. Charles Baldwin's at that spot, Matt Womack's at that spot. Corin Curvins at that spot as well. But also think he might compete at right guard, possibly even some at left guard. That's his versatility. I mean, he can kind of line up anywhere on the offensive line.
Tremendous athlete. Let's go to the phones and talk with our buddy Harold over in Anniston. How you doing, Harold?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Very well.
Man, I wanted to ask y'all, man, I saw the selection day. You think the selection committee kind of holds the SEC, man?
You talking about on basketball?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you know, Harold, let me say this. I do think there's a lot of pushback toward the SEC because of football, but no, I don't. I mean, heck, I think they were, lucky to get 3 in, to be honest with you. I mean, outside of, Kentucky and A&M, I mean, I could have easily seen them passing on Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt lost to Tennessee. South Carolina laid an egg late. Rodney, I just think the SEC's got to get better in basketball. I mean, I think I don't think they got hosed as much as they hosed themselves by not being a very good league.
No, I would agree with you, Gary. I really don't think that there was any snubbing that went on whatsoever. It just, I think the perception of the league is kind of not where it used to be. I would say that, but I don't think there was any snubbing in terms of anyone getting necessarily left out.
And the SEC announcing today that Mike Transgiesi, former Big East commissioner, the Big East really knew how to get teams in, a lot of them. He is going to be a special consultant now to the conference commissioner to help basketball get to where it needs to go so they can get more teams than 3 into the NCAA tournament. All right, thanks for your phone calls and your emails. We appreciate them. We're going to come back with a final segment of Tider Insider TV. Thanks, Rodney, for joining us from down there at Perdido Key. We'll be back with more TITV from right here at the University of Alabama's Bryant-Denny Stadium. We'll return in 2 minutes. The shirt and tie I'm wearing tonight came from the Locker Room in downtown Tuscaloosa, home of the original Elephant Wear. Go by and see them in person or shop online at locker-room.biz. The only downside of Rodney not being here tonight because he's at the beach is he's going to miss Buddy's Rib and Steak. That's where we're headed for dinner tonight over in Northport. Come out and meet us. We'll be there in about 15 minutes. That's going to do it for TITV. Have a great night, everybody.